Welcome back, everybody. Today I've got another interview for you. My good friend Brandon, he's a big inspiration to me. I look up to him a lot. I think he's got a lot of valuable things to say. So Brandon, if to start out, maybe you could just give like a brief introduction of yourself for everybody.
Sure. My name is Brandon Emerson. I'm a graphic designer. I've worked on my own for about 15 years. Started off at a sporting goods company called Everlast. Was their creative director. Made all the mistakes in the world. I think I've told you that all the time. And been working on my own for 15 years and hope to continue to do that.
Yeah. So you kind of focus on communication strategies for brands. That's correct, right?
Yes. Visual communication strategies, basically. So if you have I work with a lot of startups who haven't had, either they haven't launched yet, or they launched with, whatever they could do, which was probably unprofessional in some way or another.
Yeah.
The logo their nephew did, website that their friend did. So they kind of have no cohesive visual language that they speak with. Plus they're busy, they're startups, so they're busy running the business.
Right.
Trying to
business side.
Trying to get money in, trying to get sales. Then the whole communication side of it is like, let's just have something. But then the story they're telling the sales guys is not the story that the sales team or the clients see on their website or in their marketing. So everything's kind of a jumbled mess. So I kind of help them bring that together under, we've got a logo, we've got some brand guardrails. Here's how we talk. Here's some headlines we talk about. Here's what the website looks like. Now you can go out and have cohesive message, and that just smooths everything out.
Yeah, so kind of unifying the message across all the different teams and making it really come through with the marketing.
Yeah.
Nice. So how did you get involved with that? You said you started out at Everlast. Was that like...
So I initially wanted to be an architect, and it's silly. I got into, I'm from Ohio, so I was applying to schools in Ohio. And I applied to Ohio University, and I applied to the University of Miami in Ohio. And the University of Miami had an architecture program, and I went and stayed there and visited these beautiful campus, beautiful 2-story studios, with models of houses. It was exactly what I wanted to do, and I got in somehow. But my older brother and sister had gone to OU, and as a 16-year-old, I'd go down there and hang out with them.
Yeah.
And I thought it was the greatest place in the world. So I'm like, nah, I'm going to go to Ohio University instead. They didn't have architecture. Cool. So none of this decision making makes any sense. And I met with my counselor, and I'm like, hey, I want to be an architect. She's like, yeah, we don't have that. I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, what should I do? And she says, try graphic design. And so that was kind of a big moment because I really enjoy it. I still do.
Yeah.
I'm close to 50. And the program at OU Ohio University was a great program. It was run by a man named Don Adlita, who was a big inspiration for me. And he was trained in Switzerland, in this Swiss schools in Basel. This is kind of a classic graphic design program. We were hand painting letters. A lot of talk about print history and typography based, concept based work. It was kind of artistic in the sense we were in the School of Fine Arts, and so a lot of programs. I'm not sure if this is a good or a bad thing, actually. And our training wasn't super valid in the sense that we were taught how to design corporate communications, which is kind of what we do.
Right? Are you saying you were taught that, or you
weren't really not strategies for that? It was like, okay, here's an image, here's some typography. How do we take those two, blend them together, and create some other meaning with that? So very concept based. So a lot of thought, a lot of real deep thought, which inadvertently is training for that.
Yeah.
But you don't come out of. I didn't come out of that with schools where I could walk into, a company or a corporation or an agency and say, I know what I'm doing
Yeah.
when it comes to this. There's a lot to learn after that.
So would you say when you were in school, it was more of conveying an emotion with the design than a message? Now it's more message based.
So no, but it's you said it maybe better than I did. It was figuring out how to get some sort of emotional reaction, which is what I do every day.
Yeah.
You want people to have to feel a way about what your product is or what your service is or who you are. So you're trying to get them to feel a certain way. So it was good training for that. And I think it's a deeper level allows you to get to a deeper level of emotion even in the, corporate business, customer facing marketing world. Maybe.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so you went from wanting to be an architect,
Mm-hmm.
going through with design,
Yeah.
and then you get out of school. How did you land your first gig doing design work?
So here's a story I tell everybody. I moved back home and I was working for a small electronic company, network company, doing their graphic design. But I wanted to move to New York and had another friend who was in the school of design with me and he wanted to move to New York. And we knew a little bit about building websites, just enough. And back then I say, if you could spell HTML, you could get a job in design. That's kind of how it was. The world was booming at the time, and there were jobs. So I applied. This was through Monster.com back then, and I got 2 interviews at 2 companies. One was a big design agency. I forget the name of it now. It was a big famous design agency. Had that interview, realized fairly quickly that wasn't the place for me. I could just tell it was uncomfortable. Whatever I was saying was not what they wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And my second interview, we set up these interviews, said, hey, in our cover letter, I'm going to be in New York these dates. Would like to set up an interview to, a few companies. And got 2 interviews out of that. And the Everlast interview, the reason I got that interview, I come to find out after I got hired, was that my portfolio, I think I had a website at the time, a linked website with some images of my work on it. And because I didn't have this attached PDF, like this woman was getting 600 resumes a day or something, 300 or 600 resumes a day, boom, 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 coming in. And it was taking a long time for her to download all of these PDFs. And mine came through faster because it was a website link and not a PDF. And that's how I even popped up in front of this, hundreds of resumes. And I had 2 interviews with them. I started working 2 weeks later.
Nice.
I got a U-Haul, drove to Brooklyn, got an apartment.
Packed it up.
Yeah. Great. And I was there for 8 years.
Wow.
Big adventure. They didn't have a creative department. The guys who were running the company at the time had just purchased it from the guys who had been running it since like 1940.
Mm-hmm.
So they were definitely a little bit behind. Their packaging, they were doing photo-ready artwork for films, which was just going away, and everything was moving to digital. And I happened to know something about that. So
yeah. So you kind of got to transition from the legacy system to the new stuff.
Yeah.
And where you kind of oversaw that whole process.
Yeah. And I was, so good thing, like when you're young, you're super cocky. And I thought I knew everything, right?
Yeah.
Didn't know anything, but being naive about that was super helpful. I think it always is. And we were doing a photo shoot. This was in my first or second week there of some big heavy bag stand that holds a heavy bag, holds a speed bag, blah, blah, blah. We were doing it up in the Bronx factory. And me and another guy who I just started working with, he was helping me out. Jason Levis, we're still friends to this day, best friends. And in walks this old guy. I didn't know who it was. He was kind of walking with a cane, walking really slow. And it turns out he was the guy who had run Everlast for the past 60 or 70 years.
Wow.
Very knowledgeable, knew everything, but he was an older guy, and I was 25 or whatever. He walks in, we say hi to him, don't know who he is. And he points at me and goes, "You don't know shit." And he points at my buddy Jason and he goes, and you don't know much more than he does. And he walked out, and we were blown away. But like, he was 100% correct. We didn't know shit. And over the next 8 years, you know, we all learned a lot. Things that he learned over his experience. He just, kids don't know what they're doing. And we didn't, but we did it anyway. So anyway, like I said, I made tons of mistakes. I was the creative department, so we were shooting products on the table for catalogs, you know, cutting them out in Photoshop in a way that is the dumbest way possible. Back then, there was no Photoshop tutorials online.
Yeah.
You had to have a book.
Yeah, you had to go through the...
Get a book or know somebody, and I didn't know anybody. So one thing about working at an agency or a design firm is that you have people above you who have experience, and they teach you all these things. And I didn't have that. It was just me building, and I was the guy who was the expert, and I didn't really know anything. So I was given a lot of leeway, and I kind of had to fake it. So it was a lot of late nights, you know, all nights long.
A lot.
Yes. So it was a lot of work, great experience. I had great friends from that time. Ever since I left there, I've been working on my own.
Yeah, so overall just like a learning process and kind of getting thrown into the fire just taught you.
Yeah, and I realized I was kind of burnt out after that time at Everlast because we just worked our faces off all the time. And when I left, my plan was to never touch a computer again. And I moved back to Ohio where, you know, a little cheaper cost of living, just to take some time off, and slowly realized the one skill I have that people will pay me for is, you know, some version of graphic design in that world, or brand strategy, or, you know, somehow thinking about their business in a visual way. So ended up starting my own company and doing that.
So speaking of that, getting to your own practice, like when you start with a company and you're coming in and developing that communication strategy, what are the first things you do, or some of the first things that you look at?
You ask a lot of questions because, well, I have a lot of questions. I don't know what this company thinks they do or actually does, or what do they want people to think they do? How do they want people to think about that? So it's a lot of questions and discussions, and then, you know, because you want to do a couple things, I think, is you want to give them the best chance they have at succeeding. And part of that is, you know, are we communicating the right things in the right way to the right people at the right time? And do they believe it? You know? So you want them to not necessarily like what you're doing, but believe it, right?
Yeah.
So they have to trust me when I say, here's what I think you guys are actually selling, and here's a way I think we can communicate that to people in a way that they'll enjoy it and maybe, you know, want to click the button or, you know, create a lead or click buy, whatever. So there's a big discussion back and forth, me asking them the right questions to make them feel that I understand their business.
Yeah.
And then me understanding that business in a way that I can say, okay, but have you looked at it this way? I think, you know, if I switch into the consumer's brain, here's how I see it now. Here's what I think. Here's what I believe you're telling the consumer now, and that's not what you think that you're telling them.
Yeah.
People will lie to themselves a lot, and then people will also like to talk about themselves from their perspective. Mm-hmm. No one gives a hoot about your perspective.
Yeah.
Is this something that I want or need, and are you the people I go there to get it?
Right. So kind of what's the actual story?
What's the actual story? You got to dig for that.
And I was wondering, so when you do that process, do you have to go through multiple levels of the company sometimes to get that full picture, or how does that work with the communications internally?
So I've been fortunate where I'm usually working with the decision maker. And that's either myself and the relationship with the decision maker, or because I have an advocate that I've been brought in with, like my brand strategy mentor, Steen Cantor. He's brought me into a lot of rooms where I would not have been able to get into without his gravitas, right? His experience. So he would bring me into places, and him vouching for me would give me that access to the decision maker, right?
Yeah.
And then other times I'm with companies who are, they're not that big, and it's just going to be a waste of time if there's an intermediary between the work that I'm doing and the person who's actually making the decisions.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
kind of
makes
important to get to that. It's not always easy,
Yeah.
but there's a lot that gets lost in translation.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not having direct conversation with the person who's making the decisions, then you can't affect that relationship. They can't trust you, really,
Yeah.
They have to understand, like, I know this, I understand this, I have asked all the right questions, they've given me all the answers they can. They're like, oh, this kid gets it, right?
Yeah.
So
speaking of that, I was wondering if there's ever a time where you're having one of those conversations and somebody is very persistent or adamant about doing something that you feel will be harmful to the brand.
yeah,
How do you manage that?
that's a good question. I will push back until I'll push back as much as I can until I've said my piece and explained it, coming at it from every direction, saying yes, but this, yes, but this. If we do it this way, here's what's going to happen. If we do it the way you're talking about, this is how I think it's going to go. And I will push back until it gets a little uncomfortable. And if they're still adamant about it, I'm like, great, sure, it's your company, it's your dime. I usually won't, I don't know if I'd go to the mat I'll just carefully try to maneuver things the right way. And if they don't go that way, then they don't go that way.
Yeah.
But it's just got to be plain that, okay, your decision is to do this, our advice is to do this.
Yeah.
And we're all clear on that.
Yeah. Kind of just keep the record straight.
Yeah, just keep the record straight. So I'm fine with that. It's fine. It's your company, it's your toy.
Yeah, they're the decision makers.
They are the decision makers. Now, I think there are some people who wouldn't do that. They'd be like, no. I think Steen Cantor, my mentor at the time, I think he would say no. Now he had more gravitas than I have. But anyway, just push back, try to maneuver it. Just like, okay, maybe just, you get pretty good. You're having conversations like this, all the time with people, and you really want to understand what their daily struggles are and what's going on in this bit, what's really going on. So you get really kind of good at asking the right questions and then kind of helping guide the conversation in a certain way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if we could just talk a little bit about some of the projects that you've been working on.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe first up, I saw that you're now involved with an e-bike safety program.
Yep.
It's called Pedalace, right?
Yep, pedalace.com. There's 4 of us. 3 friends of mine 1 year ago on New Year's Eve, or on Christmas Eve, I had the idea, like, there should be some online safety course for these kids who are under 16 who have never been taught anything about the rules of the road. And where we live, there's a lot of kids from 12 to 15 or maybe younger who have e-bikes, and they're riding these motorcycles around town, and everyone's a little worried that there's going to be an accident. And obviously no one wants anyone to get hurt, no one wants to be the reason someone got hurt, and these bikes are everywhere, and kids are kids. They're kids. I love that they have the freedom to have a bike and run around town, and that it can be mainly safe, but they just don't know all the things that you or I know because we took, driver's education course, or we've been driving for years. So we created this course, 55 videos, animated videos, covering rules of the road, bike safety, what to do if you get in an accident, how to stay out of an accident, wear your helmet, all these things. There's 6 quizzes and a final exam, and I just think for parents, my kids are still too young for e-bikes, but they're obviously asking me about them all the time. But
Yeah.
if they ever are going to get an e-bike, they will take this course, and they have to pass this course because all that stuff has to be in their head.
Yeah, gotta know it going in.
Yeah.
So, how are you guys reaching the parents of these kids or the kids themselves to get that material out there?
So I don't think the kids are gonna
Yeah,
want to
I
take
was
the
gonna
course,
say.
right? So as we had the conversations about this, everything is geared toward mom and dad. Like, hey, you bought your kid an e-bike, now maybe invest in their safety a little bit, right? So you got this $2,000 e-bike and $150 helmet, and your kids, I don't know, I wouldn't have known what to do on the road. Certainly not in a town this busy. So let's just give them the knowledge that they need as much as we can. Our whole thing is safer streets, stronger communities. So I don't want to be angry at e-bikers.
Yeah.
I want them to just follow the rules as much as a 13-year-old can. Still have fun, but stop at the stop sign. Walking over here, there's a kid riding his bike through the stop sign on a wheelie, doing a wheelie. I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the guy who came around the corner.
And clip them.
So I think it's super important, and it was a lot of fun. And I worked with a great animator out of Brooklyn and I'd never really worked with an animator before. That was a good project. To kind of creatively direct. You want to make it kind of fun. We wrote a nice script that's kind of fun and interesting visually, but obviously it lays out, this is a one-way street, you can't turn left here. It was a good education for me too. So
Yeah. Were there any rules of the road that you had to brush up on that you were surprised by?
think about that. A lot of it's e-bike specific. So because you're going slower than cars a lot of the time, you want people to go single file and kind of be on the right hand side of the road unless you need to go over here to turn left. And then if you're gonna change lanes, you don't have all the mirrors and stuff that you'd have, or the video screen you have on your Tesla. So you just have to, you kind of have to always be aware of who's around.
Yeah.
And what you're doing, and you can't be looking at your phone, or I don't know, if you got 3 buddies, it's real easy to get distracted. But you're 13, you're having fun, you don't know how serious things are. So if we can just turn their heads a little bit, 15% more towards safety, I think that will help a lot of kids, not get hurt or, anything tragic with anyone else in the community. So if everybody can get along, be aware, we'll have a better place to live, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one that I was kind of curious about was the rail. I saw some of your work with them.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool and looked fun.
The rail was a lot of fun. That was one of my first projects after I left Everlast and moved back to Ohio. A good friend of mine, Mike Mariola, he's the founder of the rail and restaurateur. He has a steakhouse, Italian place. He basically, the town near where I grew up, which was the biggest town, was Worcester, Ohio. And when I was in college, the downtown was what used to be a very vibrant downtown, even when I was in elementary school, like shoe stores and but obviously everything that has happened to a lot of small towns in America happened to Worcester, which Home Depot, Walmart get built outside of town, and all the businesses downtown go out of business. So it was like tumbleweeds blowing through town. Well, he and his wife were some of the first people to bring business back to this downtown. It's a historic downtown. It's beautiful. 25,000 people population. These beautiful buildings. And his wife was a potter. She had a pottery studio. And they opened up a high-end bistro. He's a French-trained chef. And he's like, we're going to do this in Worcester. And they did it. And I think it went for 5 or 6 years. And I've had this discussion with him all the time. He said, I've made every mistake you can make. Young, energetic, you got a lot of energy, so you can make up for all these mistakes. And then he ended up closing that down, opening up a steakhouse, and getting smarter about his business. And the Rail is a casual burger chain in Ohio. I think there's five locations right now. And at the time when we were talking about it, the whole idea was kind of honesty in food,
Yeah.
and in marketing, and then we're trying to do all Ohio beef. Here's where our eggs come from, here's where our lettuce comes from, here's where our cows come from. And the logo is just an upside down cow, and it's kind of a striking image. It's kind of a stiff cow. It's like you'd see a picture of a show cow, kind of, right? It's a silhouette of the show cow.
Yeah.
And all we did was flip it upside down. And in our mind, it's like, what's a burger? It's a dead cow.
Yeah.
It's made from dead cows. That's it. We're not lying to anybody. This is where the meat comes from. So that was part of the discussion, which gave us a lot of leeway when it came to, things we said in marketing. If we have an upside down dead cow, we can kind of say whatever we want.
Yeah.
And we can have fun with this.
Yeah.
And that was also, that was basically my first project after Everlast, where I kind of realized I had something to offer, businesses.
Yeah.
Because of my experience. And I had to kind of step away before I realized that, I've done all this stuff. I can do this.
Yeah.
I mean, I ended up talking with someone, and then I'm like, we're just having a conversation at the bar or whatever. I'm like, okay, yeah. And like, they're listening to me. I'm like, they think I know what I'm talking about. So I've just run with that ever since.
That's awesome.
But they've been a great client, and Mike's a great guy, and they're doing really well. And restaurants, that's a tough business. So
yeah. So speaking to that project a little bit more,
yeah.
Did you kind of come in, because I was reading about it, and you kind of came in and developed that mission first, right, of honesty, and then did everything kind of stem out of that?
Yeah, so I do this a lot different ways with different people, right? And the training that I have, or my experience with, brand strategy, mentors, and companies is, let's codify some things. Let's talk, have all these conversations. We'll ask a bunch of questions, and then we'll write things down into some sort of, vision, mission, value proposition, just some words that we can all agree on.
Yeah.
And then once we have this pile of words that we've all agreed on, that's full of emotion and different things we can use, and then we can take that and then build the visual language of the brand, right? Logos, colors, patterns, typefaces, all that stuff. In reality, creating those can be great for businesses, right? And if you want to grow your business and you want to get like-minded people in who feel the same way you do, say, here's what we believe in, maybe you can learn to believe in that too. So that's great internally. But what it really does is it gives me something objective to talk about when I'm presenting a logo, for instance, or an identity, right?
Yeah.
I'll say, because our vision is this, and this is this stands for that, and put that together. So it really helps with the internal sales pitch, basically.
Yeah.
We think this visually is the way to go, and here people want to understand how you got to that solution, right? You can't just throw it out there and say, here's your logo, or here's your identity, and here's your website.
Yeah.
Like,
gotta back it up.
why would you do any of that? So I take people through the process. Some designers will say, we're going to have this solution one, solution two, solution three, which is a fine way to do it. What I usually do is I start off, I show them very rough sketches, talk about my decision-making process as I go through those, and how I pick this, and this into the next stage of sketching and resolution, and say, here's why we did this, and this based on maybe some of these words. And here's a solution we ended up with. So they get to see all the paths, how they started, and how I got to this one solution. Now, it doesn't always end up being that solution, because we'll back up and be like, hey, maybe something up here fits because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I'm like, great, no problem. So we'll go back to the drawing board and take a little bit of this and meld it together. And to be honest, I almost always feel like when I get into those situations, the longer I work, the more we revise, the better it gets sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes it's the opposite, where I find the solution right away and that's it. Kind of like the Rail.
Yeah.
Did a bunch of work, but once we turned that cow upside down, everyone was like, "That's it, we're done. We got it. That's what we want to do." So it happens differently all the time, and we don't always go through the language process, the vision, mission, value proposition. Sometimes it's very tedious and holds it up, and I think we can get to a visual solution without it, right? And sometimes the relationship, they don't want to do that. They're like, "Yeah, we don't have time to do that. Can we just have a conversation, or a few conversations, and you give us a solution?" I'm like, "Yeah, great, totally, we can do that too."
Yeah, kind of depends on the needs of what they're going through.
Yeah, totally. And I don't have a scientific way. Like everyone has, many companies and agencies have, here's their process, right? Here's how we do it. And that's super smart. And if you can codify that process, good for you. But I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it. I don't know why.
The rigidity, or
it's just so much rehearsed bullshit.
yeah.
And I'm not saying the solution is bullshit. I'm not saying the words that actually come out are bullshit. I just don't like the process.
Yeah.
You know, I would have someone else do it if I could. If you want to help someone create their vision, mission, value proposition, you do it, then give it to me, and then I can roll with that. We'll see. I don't know. It's not super strategic for me as a business owner to feel that way, but that's just how I feel.
Well, I'm glad you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. And then I was kind of wondering about Rassler. Can you talk a little bit about Rassler and how it's going with that?
Yeah, so Rassler was my attempt to figure out some of these print-on-demand apparel solutions.
Yeah.
I never really worked with them. I thought it was kind of a neat thing, and if you have an idea and you have a brand and you have a website and you have this print-on-demand solution and you have a shopping solution, you can have business, right? And I'm a big collegiate wrestling fan, and go to the National Wrestling, NCAA wrestling tournament every year with some good friends. And I was like, there's got to be some way I can set up something to at least help pay for my tickets, right?
Yeah.
Something, just
They do
as
it
way
as
as possible. But yeah, like even if I can make a couple grand a year and just like say all of this goes to paying for the trip to the wrestling tournament. And so I came up with a brand, Rassler, R-A-S-L-R. The URL was available, awesome, love a 5-letter URL. And so I set up a website, set up the Shopify, and I set it up with Printful and designed a bunch of shirts, caps, hats. And then I realized that the next step was social media and paid marketing.
Yeah.
And I did none of that because I realized I hate that part.
Yeah.
I tried to do social media 1 year at the tournament. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be Rassler. I'm gonna post, and I hated every second of it, and I can't do it. And so it sits there. It's a lot. It exists. It's there. I think someday I will do something with it. But what I realize is like this portion of brand and business building, this beginning portion is what I love.
Yeah.
Everything after that, I'm fine supporting that, but I don't know how to do it. I don't want to know how to do it. I'm not going to learn how to do it. So that was a good lesson. Anyway.
What did you hate about social media?
I don't know who I'm talking to. I'm not someone who, I'm on social media, right? But mostly I just consume. I'm not someone, I don't want to talk about myself. I don't want to talk about anything really. And I'm at this event, I want to experience it, yet the whole time I'm looking at my phone, posting videos and seeing what kind of content I can create. I'm like, this is for somebody else.
You feel like you're not really there?
I'm not there, I'm not having fun, now I'm just working. That's for someone else to do.
Yeah.
There are millions of people obviously who are very good at it and love to do it. So I need, that's my niche is here.
Yeah.
So I created this company that now exists, but it doesn't exist because no one's done the second portion. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, I have some friends now who are like, well, we can help you out with that. So hopefully soon we'll you know, that part will be handled by somebody else.
Yeah, get someone else on it.
Yeah, totally.
And then I was looking through your LinkedIn and I saw that you've kind of managed a couple communication strategies where there's like either brands are expanding to a foreign country or like multiple languages are involved,
Yes.
multiple cultures.
Yeah.
How did you go about that process?
It's a good question. Because I've done it twice now. And the first was with Ashley Furniture, helping them open their first retail store in China. I've never been to China. I don't speak Chinese, right? But this was a project that I was brought into by Steve Cantor. He's the genius, right? So here's how I explain that. Well, basically, we had so much research on the consumer in China, what they wanted, what they needed, what they wanted to know about, you know, this furniture. So at that point, I know everything I need to know. Someone else needs to will translate it into the correct language. So we just talk about, okay, if we're in this store, you know, it's a communication package of, you know, how someone goes through the process of shopping the store. So what do they see from the street? What do they see when they get to the front door? What information is sending them over to this part of the store? When they get to that part of the store, what information do they see there? When they get really close up to a product, what information are they seeing there? So it's just layers of information. We know from the research what messages we need to deliver and where we need to deliver them. So there's this high-level brand sign on the front, or there's a big tagline that talks about safety and your lovely home. So it's not that difficult when you have, you know, the people there on the ground to help translate and get all of that done. So
Yeah. So
that process worked really well.
when you're going through that information about the Chinese market and
Yeah.
kind of translating the Ashley brand
Yeah.
to that, what were some of the major differences that you noticed?
Well, the big thing was safety, and making sure that when this product was in your home, it wasn't going to collapse. That was a big worry, because I think there was, you know, the way manufacturing was at the time. You know, you get a non-branded piece of furniture, bunk bed, maybe it falls apart and there's no one to talk to. Some of the materials being used were not great materials to have in your home because of off-gassing and things like that. So that some of the glues, some of the materials.
Yeah.
So conveying that, hey, look, this is an American company. You know, we manufacture here in China, but here are the standards that we manufacture to. So that was you know, we had to earn some trust, right? Which I haven't worked with them in quite a while, but I think that's happened. You know, the other one was the Kuwait National Cinema Company in Kuwait, and they were the first and largest cinema company in the Middle East, actually, and went through a big rebrand, big communication package to get, you know, what's the consumer path through this, you know, buying a ticket, getting your refreshments, having a seat, having a good time, and then leaving. So we just think about that whole process. At the same time, we were going through, you know, a visual brand update, because the problem was in Kuwait, for a long time, no one was allowed to compete with them. There was one cinema company, so they had all of the theaters, and no other company was allowed to open theaters.
Okay.
So that ended at a certain point, and competitors were coming in, and they were building these big, beautiful, modern cinemas, and they were taking a lot of business away. So they had to really up their game. Cinescape is their cinema brand, and so we just had to revamp the whole process, update it, you know, look at it through the consumer's eyes, and make sure we're giving them the experience they could get from some of the new guys. So they kind of had to compete.
Yeah.
Which
Had
we
to update.
Yeah, and that was a lot of fun. The logo solution there worked out in that we had the same shape in the Arabic word as we did in the English word, which was this. We turned the A in the English word to be like a projector, projecting light, and that worked out really nicely. And that's still their brand to this day. That was a great experience for me, being in. I hadn't been in the Middle East at all, and Kuwait was a great experience.
Nice. What were some differences culturally there?
There's no alcohol in Kuwait, so there's no like bar scene. But you go out to the food. The food was fine. It was just a shock, kind of.
Yeah.
I think it was 124 degrees one day.
Oh wow.
Which is the hottest I've ever been in, and that's how it was the whole week. But just being in that culture was eye-opening and new to me. There's a lot of American military over there too, so it's kind of interesting. Makes it an interesting city. And cinema. I learned a lot about projectors, speakers, 4DXC. Just that's one thing that I love about my job is because I do work in so many different industries.
Yeah.
And to be successful, you really have to learn about the business. So you end up learning these. Like I learned about one of my favorite projects was Rayco Manufacturing. They were in Worcester, Ohio, and they manufacture stump grinders. Right? I know more about stump grinders than I should ever know. I've never ground a stump in my life.
Yeah.
But I know so much about them. It's great. So restaurants, how does a restaurant work? I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea how important it was, how important the layout of the kitchen to the bar, how waiters and bartenders get from the front to the back. I had no anything about that. I find that very interesting. That keeps me interested.
Yeah, getting to learn about each new project.
Yeah, and learning about, okay, so you've got an apparel brand, online apparel brand. What do you have to do to get that going? I know now. I just haven't done it, right? But I know.
Yeah.
And so that was eye-opening for me as well.
Yeah.
There's always something new to do.
Yeah, it's good to keep the learning going.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of that, I was wondering, what are some things that you think people frequently get wrong when they're trying to define their brand?
I think this is a little harsh way to say it, I think they lie to themselves, or they don't have the ability to look at their business through the eyes of the consumer. And that's the most important. You have to be able to pull yourself out of all this day-to-day stuff and be that consumer.
Yeah.
Like you have to be that consumer. It's method acting, right? You have to have that ability. You don't have that ability, you're just creating a bunch of stuff. Could be a bunch of noise. It might work, it might not. There's no way to know. But you have to really have that ability to pull yourself out and look at your company and see, okay, here's our website right now. Here's some of our advertising. Here's a PDF, or here's what our storefront looks like. And if you're the founder or the people who are working it day to day, you see a whole different view of this. So you'll get lost in that, and you'll just end up tricking yourself, lie to yourself, and say, here's what we do, here's what we're saying, but you're not saying that.
Yeah.
That's what you think you're saying. It's just not true.
It's kind of just the internal vision that you're projecting on, or you
Yeah.
think you're always doing the right thing.
Yeah, and
So-
like also maybe let's say you have a product and you have created it to solve this specific task. Great, right? You solve that objective task. But for this person, the consumer, that task being solved for them means what? That means, I have a simpler day, or I have an easier day, or my day is more fun because of whatever that is. Like tapping into the reason, like you've solved the problem, but for these people, what's the emotional response to that? That's how you communicate with that person.
Yeah.
We solve these problems 1, 2, 3, and they'll talk about that left and right, but they won't say, we're going to make your day better, right?
Yeah.
Which is the heart of the matter for that person who's going to buy it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then if somebody's got an idea and for a brand that they want to develop, what's the first thing that they should do, in your opinion?
I don't know if that's too big of a question, Charlie. Like,
So I can give you an example. Like,
Yeah.
say somebody has got an idea bouncing around in their head of maybe like a clothing brand that they
Yeah.
want to start. Maybe they're an artist, they have a couple drawings,
Mhm.
but they don't know how to like put that in a coherent form. What would you say is like the first step they should take?
I mean, just start doing it. For sure.
Yeah.
Like if this is, you know, if it's a business that you need to work for your life to run, maybe think about it differently, right? Like there's a certain amount of investment you're going to have to make if that's what you want to do. Like for instance, if it was Rassler, right? That business has failed in any objective sense, right? But for me, it was great because I learned a lot about myself and about what I want to do in the future and how I'm going to do it and what I can't do and what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
So that worked for me in that way. Started it, it's all set up. You can go buy a shirt right now. No one's doing it because no one knows about it. But I learned a lot in that process. So go do it, make a bunch of mistakes, and rebound from those mistakes, I guess.
Yeah.
That's it.
Just keep it.
I don't think
continually
like
going.
look, logos are important. Logos don't matter. Both of those are 100% true, right? So yeah, just go.
Just go do it.
Go do it. And if you have friends who are going to help along the way, great. Yeah.
Just put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So kind of moving to design. What do you think what's important to you? Like, what does design mean to you? Like when you say the word design, what does that encompass?
I mean, lame answer, but like, you know, it's everything. It's how the tripod is built and how the tripod's designed, and you know, if someone designed that pen to do certain things and you feel a certain way about that type of pen, it's probably the only pen you buy.
Yeah,
Right?
it is.
You've got an emotional connection to that. It also writes the way you want it to write. You know you can get it almost anywhere you are in the world. All of the pens suck, right?
It's reliable. They're cheap. I lose them. Doesn't matter. Buy new ones.
Right.
They write how I want them to write.
Right. You need that's perfect. So that's the solution for you. I don't know if that speaks to design, but the truth is, there's so many people who have feelings about design
Yeah.
and opinions about design, and I couldn't give a shit about any of that. I do not care.
Yeah.
I think of it as this is my relationship with my client, and we come to these solutions, and then we set that solution free, right? That's it. I try to give them the best work that I can do for their business. I want them to succeed, whether or not someone in the design criticism world finds what I did to be award worthy or something they want to put on their website. I don't ever think about that. That would be great if someone said, "Hey, this is great work." I will always take a compliment. But that's not something I think about. It's just like, okay, did I help this person with their business, with the work that they hired me to do?
Yeah. So you don't necessarily adhere to like a strict set of principles or.
Okay, I'm sure there are principles that I adhere to that I do it subconsciously. You know, it's always like, I used to say that I will center text as a last option, right? Like,
Yeah.
never center it, ever, just because so many times I say, why don't you just center that? I'm like, I don't know. and maybe it's just something to fight against, because who cares? There are certain decisions where you can overthink this for no reason.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a difference. You have to put your energy into decisions that are going to make a difference.
Yeah.
And otherwise, let someone else make a decision. But the CEO wants that tech centered. I'm like, great. I will not fight you on that. It's not going to make a difference.
It seems like a subjective field where people could get very opinionated about it.
So this goes back to the vision, mission, value proposition. You said subjective. Yes, people have opinions, and everyone's got an opinion. I took this home, showed my wife, and she said it should be purple. Or my husband thought that this typeface was wrong. People with who aren't in the business or don't have any training. That's going to happen all the time. Which is why it is sometimes very important. You have to take whether you codify the vision, mission, value proposition, or you actually have a conversation where the decision makers and stakeholders use words. You need to keep those words and say, the reason I did this was because you guys have said this about your consumer or your product, to make sure that we're all aligned. Because I'm making decisions based on what you have told me or what we've learned in some of the research. So that's where you add the objectivity in this subjective world. You have to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, other people who, agencies with bigger budgets, they'll do research, they'll have, people, focus groups and all this stuff. That's where they get a lot of the objective feedback, right? That helps keep everybody aligned as well. Most of the people I work with either don't have the budget or don't want to have the budget, so we make our best educated guesses as to how we think this is going to land.
Okay.
I think, if you're not Coca-Cola, I think I can get there pretty close without
having to spend all the money and all the market research and everything.
Yeah.
All the extra.
But I get why agencies do it. There's, they have 600 mouths to feed, and I've got 3.
Yeah.
So.
And then I was wondering what tools you use for your work.
Yeah, so I use Adobe Creative Suite as the base of everything. Illustrator, Photoshop, XD are the 3 main ones. I've used InDesign in the past for some big documents. Again, that's one of those things that I'll let somebody else do now. There's a lot of tedious things that need to happen to create a large, beautiful document, 100 pages, something like that I'm never going to understand how to do. But some of the software that XD and Figma, these fairly new pieces of software, I love using them. Somehow they're super enjoyable to use. The experience of building a page or laying out a mobile app or a website it's a pleasure. In ways that even Illustrator has. I love Illustrator. I use it all the time, and I use it for what I use it for. But for somehow the Figma XD products have been super pleasurable to use.
And those are the 2 for mocking up websites.
Yeah,
or mobile apps. Right?
Yeah, mobile apps and websites. But you can use it for other things too. And people get super creative. They do amazing illustrations in these. It's all vector based, and you can do really cool stuff once you really know it. And I know this much of it. I know just enough that I can throw together a website and say, hey, maybe we could do it like this. But probably poorly, and the people who would develop it are like, what is this, man? But anyway, I do enjoy using those pieces of software.
Nice. And then, do you have any recommended reading either from school or from work about just like you were talking about design principles?
Mm-hmm. I wish I had my bookshelf nearby. There's a designer named David Carson who kind of had a big effect on me when I was in school. Mm-hmm. You might even recognize some of his work. This was back in early mid-90s. Skateboard magazines, surfing magazines, Ray Gun magazine, David Carson was just destroying everything, right? He was just destroying pages of type. You know, they would have an article laid out, and he would turn paragraphs upside down. Some type would be this big, some type would have been crumbled up and cut in half, and it was, you know, it would just added this level of emotion, or, you know, it wasn't easy to read.
Yeah.
But it was kind of exciting to read. And, you know, sometimes you were doing this. You were really interacting with this magazine that you hadn't done before. And so I was really, in design school, there were a lot of rules. And when you're young, all you want to do is break the rules, right? So I spent a lot of time messing things up, you know, taking what was this beautiful, clean column of text and this image up here, and then doing whatever I could to mess that up, right? If you can make the structure correct and beautiful with a nice ragged right edge, and you can get it all set up nice and tight, if you can do that, which we taught how to do and did for hours, then you're allowed to break it, right?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of fun. So I feel like I've just been thinking about that recently. I hadn't thought about it for 15, 20 years. Like, okay, maybe it's time to break some things. You know?
Yeah, get back to that.
Yeah. Just wake yourself up. Not a kid anymore, but breaking the rules is still something that I find enjoyable.
Yeah, make it exciting, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So then I kind of want to talk about like your networking skills a little bit.
Yeah.
And just how you grow and build and maintain relationships.
Yeah. For me, it didn't come naturally. When I was working at Everlast, one of my other best friends, Seth Horowitz, was the CEO, and he could just walk into any room, still can, and walk into any room and ingratiate himself with everyone. And if we threw a mic to him, he would grab that mic and have something to say, right? And I thought that was an amazing skill to have. And I was always very reserved. I'd walk into a room and be like, I don't know, kind of shy. Had a little bit of anxiety about that. And I decided at some point, like, I have to be better at this. This is no reason for me to be nervous walking into a room when it's obvious that it's possible for people to not be nervous walking into a room. So I just constantly worked on that. And now I've gotten to the point where if I'm in a social gathering, I'll find the person who doesn't really want to have a conversation, and that's the person I'm going to go have a conversation with. I want to be able to figure out the key to unlock them so we can have a conversation.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I kind of get my kicks out of that. Like, I enjoy that.
Yeah.
I like finding the person who's like, yeah, whatever. And then I just, can I ask the right question to get them to go, oh, I'm interested in that. I have thoughts on that. This guy, maybe I'll talk to him.
Yeah.
I love that.
And get to like learn what they're interested in.
Yeah.
Kind of like find the hidden secret.
Find the hidden secret and just to get them to talk.
Yeah.
Because they're a person, probably around my age, and they have experiences, and I want to hear about them. And I don't like talking about myself. So let's get this person to talk about themselves. And so that's helpful for me in business situations. And it's gotten me a lot of work because one thing is I had to learn a lot about business in this process.
Yeah.
I didn't know shit about business. And I was thinking with just design, right? This one sliver of the business. And early on, it got me in a lot of trouble because I would say, this is how we want to do it, but I couldn't say why in the language of the person who I was doing it for.
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm going to solve your problem. You're gonna have more business, sell more products because if I do this.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the vocabulary for that. So in the process of trying to ask the right questions socially and to people to get them to open up, I'm also showing with those questions that I understand your business. I care about your customer. I care about your bottom line. So now when I say this is what I recommend, they'd be like, oh, I get it. This guy gets me, I get him. Let's do this.
Just kind of learning to speak the language.
I think it boils down to trust at a certain point.
Yeah.
Like if you know the questions to ask, you've earned that person's trust. Whether that's the CEO or whether that's the guy, that's the guy at the dinner party and didn't want to talk. Like you've learned a level of trust, and people will open up.
Yeah.
And give you the reins.
So going through that process, how do you generally find out what's important to people?
You kind of probe, right? People give away clues with how they talk to you, or sometimes you're brought in to a situation by an outsider or a third party.
Yeah.
So you're meeting maybe the CEO or the business owner for the first time. They want to know you're not taking their money. They want to know, when they're talking to a designer or a creative person, there's a lot of legacy that comes with that, where they're like, are you some temperamental designer? Are you flighty? Are you gonna be on time? And I think I'm a pretty blue collar designer. I don't know. I show up on time.
Yeah.
I try not to have emotions, really. Like, okay, I want to make this objective for you as well. I'm going to bring my subjectivity to it, but I'm not going to make you decide on the subjectivity. I'm going to say, here's why this is going to make more money. That's kind of, I wouldn't say it as straightforward as that, but that's kind of what I'm saying when I say it.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that approach. So if there's someone out there that's struggling to meet people or make friends or have conversations, just get out socially,
yeah,
what would your advice be to them?
Yeah, it's work. You have to work on it, and you're gonna sound dumb sometimes. I definitely have put my foot in my mouth, or heard the record scratch in the room, and I don't know. That's just kind of it's not that big of a deal, really. But also be interested, and like if you're really interested, because I'm interested, I want to hear. I'd rather hear some weird, strange perspective on life than some perspective on life that I've heard 100 times.
Yeah.
So if you're genuinely interested in the answer, like be interested in the answer. Because if you're not, and you're just waiting for yourself to speak, or you're waiting to give them your card, people are going to see, okay, thanks, I'll email you if you have a problem. But like, be interested in that person's life and their business, and I find that's the best way to get work. Because I give a shit. I want your business to be better, to be what you want it to be. Hopefully I can help you do that. I really do want that. And maybe if your social media person quits, maybe they can come run wrestling.
Nice. Well, getting back to business.
Yeah.
Like you said, you've started your own consulting business.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to ask, what was that like to start your own thing?
I had a pretty fortunate situation. I just left Everlast. I had some savings, and I moved to Ohio where living was cheap. And so I kind of had time. I didn't have pressure, and I was single, didn't have any kids. So I had really no responsibilities. And it evolved, slowly grew. Mm-hmm. And so that's super fortunate. That's not a position everyone's in. I didn't have to make a drastic change. It was just the way my life was going at the time, and I slowly got to build a roster. And then my relationship with Steve Cantor was from Everlast. So much of my education in brand strategy came from the last year and a half at Everlast, where we went through a big corporate restructuring, brand refresh. We went through the vision, mission, value proposition, creating archetypes, this whole big process that was very successful for Everlast. How do you make this 100-year-old brand relevant again to a consumer who's used to Nike and Adidas? Well, right? There's always been this affinity for the Everlast brand because of, as shady as boxing is, and as no one cares about boxing, but it still has this allure. I think much of that is from Muhammad Ali, right? That guy wearing Everlast on his
Sorry.
That's all right. But anyway, that process, I learned a lot. And my relationship with Steen, once I left Everlast and he left his agency, he needed a guy like me to do the creative visual side with his clients. And so working with him really helped me understand business in a, high level way that I could have a conversation with the CEO and say, I get what you're trying to do. I understand your business, return on investment on this and the EBITDA over here, all that stuff.
Yeah. So did you kind of already have a pipeline of clients set up before you left? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
there's never been a pipeline of clients. There's just relationships and there's never been a pipeline.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I thought when you were saying that.
So I had clients, more local, independent, smaller.
Yeah.
And then work with Steen, I got to walk into rooms that were a little bit bigger, right? Better paying, a little more stressful, right? A little more on the line. But I also worked with some great entrepreneurs. We started this company called Make Meaning with an entrepreneur, Dan Nisanoff, and I've worked with him on 2 or 3 projects since. So that was a good relationship. If you work your butt off and you try to do good work, people will call you back. So I've got a couple entrepreneurs that I work with. Hopefully we'll work with in the future. That's super helpful. So the pipeline exists now, or I have relationships.
Yeah.
In the beginning it didn't. So it was, some months were great, some months were bad. And I didn't know how to run the business either. I'm just like, okay, yeah, how much? Okay, this much? I don't know. You learn a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of mistakes were made, and sometimes I take projects that I wish I didn't take. I'm trying to get better about that. Experience lets you see what this could be.
Yeah.
Or you try to move that project in a way that's going to make it better for everybody. So.
And then in terms of starting off on your own and then being your own manager,
yeah.
How did you manage to stay organized and on track and make sure that you're moving in the right direction?
Dumb, bullheaded luck, I think. I don't have a method. If someone said they needed work, I'd say, okay, I'll do that. It's risky for sure. Like I said, I had a fortunate. Happened to me in a fortunate time period where all I had to do was worry about myself. All I had to do was feed myself, keep my heart beating. That's it. That was my responsibility, right? And then deliver for clients, which takes some of the stress off. I didn't have to worry about other people or paying for college or my kids' college or anything like that. So happened at the right time for me. I don't have any really smart advice except just do good work as best you can.
Got it.
Hopefully those relationships grow, right?
Yeah.
Or people will see your work. Or they could say, I've never marketed, and the website I haven't updated for 5-6 years. I'm not good at that, like I said, terrible at that. But people who I work with many times will say, hey, you should call these guys looking for what you do and have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
So it's, the word networking, I hate that word networking because it just seems kind of sleazy.
Yeah, it seems fake, I know.
It's kind of fake.
Writing it down.
So you have to be genuine about it, and you're going to waste a lot of time talking to people who just want to fucking talk and don't really have work. They just want to bloviate about their business or their life. So you have to be smart and kind of understand this guy's probably full of shit and there's not going to be any work here. And if you do figure that out, stop that conversation, right? So just meet people, be interested, and then be genuine and do good work. And it's going to be slow, and you're going to feel like all this effort you're putting into it isn't working. And then, but it builds and it builds and it builds, and all of a sudden you're good at talking to people. People are happy with your work, and word spreads, and there's this kind of snowball that follows you around. So you have to cultivate that.
Yeah, I just kept taking the time and getting the skills sharpened and being ready when it comes.
Yeah, stick your neck out a little bit. Talk to people.
Yeah, and then I was wondering, what are some of the things that surprised you or that you weren't expecting, like when you started your own gig? Maybe it could be from like a tax perspective or I don't know, anything that came up along the way.
There's a lot of stress. Like when you work, if you're working in-house, you have whatever stresses and politics happen inside of a company. And then when you're working for yourself, there's months where you have no money coming in, or you lost a couple clients you thought you had, or projects came right up to the edge and you thought you were going to get them and you didn't. It's painful, some painful lessons. So I don't know what the lesson is, but like you're going to have some really high highs and some really low lows at certain points until you can, like, I don't feel like it's been a few years recently where I've kind of had things have smoothed out, where things are coming and going at a rate that is steady.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know exactly how that has happened. It's because of relationships and work and experience, but there's no math that can get you there. I think it's just, I don't know. Maybe, and the truth is, like, I do have some stress where tomorrow this could all go away and I have to start over. Right.
Right. Because it's all kind of like on you to get the business.
Yeah, right.
Keep it.
Right. So that stress is always there. So, lots of benefits. I work out of my garage, right? It's great. But I'm always kind of working. Like, I'm always available.
Right.
I haven't taken a vacation without, my laptop and checking emails forever.
Because you're the one point of contact pretty much. So.
Yeah. So I don't recommend that. If you can grow to more people and have someone help you with the communications and the bookkeeping and all that stuff, do it. But then you've got more mouths to feed, and it's going to change the way your business works.
Yeah, and maybe more stress in a different light, because it's like
maybe, yeah. So I wouldn't tell anyone to do what I did. No way. Not a good idea. Do something else. Go work at Google. Set your eyes on, go work at Apple or go to an agency, do something. But
what would you tell them, or what would you change?
I mean, I wouldn't change anything about what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell someone. I couldn't in conscience tell someone, here's what you should do. Because there's no formal decision making process. So I don't know. Just work your ass off. Like, I've worked. A lot of people give millennials shit, and I've worked with some people who, bring a lot of their emotions into work.
Right.
And my advice would be, don't do that.
Can you say a little more?
No one cares about your emotions in the business world, right? Like, no one cares. No one cares about your excuses.
Right.
No one gives a shit. If you said you will do this in this time period, you do that. And whatever struggles and things you have to overcome to get that done, keep that to yourself. No one wants to hear it.
Yeah.
And the more you talk about that, the less they're going to want to work with you. I'm not bringing my problems to my clients. Not going to happen. I will not let it happen. I will stay up all night. I will hunt down whatever I need to answer. I need to hunt down to get it done at the time that I said I would get it done. That's it. If you think like that, you're going to have more people hiring you.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that's like uncommon more now?
Say that again?
Do you think it's uncommon now to have that mentality, or it's more frequent?
I don't know. it's only anecdotal that
Right.
I hear that, and it's probably not as true. But it's a skill. Keep that to yourself. It's not benefiting you.
Right.
No one owes you anything.
And I don't think it necessarily even makes you look better, even if you miss the deadline, to just.
No. Say,
Okay.
I mean, if you're gonna miss a deadline, that happens. Sure, I've done it for sure. Say, hey, I'm gonna miss this deadline. What can we do? What can I do? Can I get more time? That's your fault. I don't care if your grandma died, if the world ended, if you got in a car crash. It's still your fault. It's on you.
Right.
So it's on you to fix it and communicate with them to make it okay as you can make it, right? You can't just ask for things. Say, here, I'm gonna, I know I screwed up or this happened, I'm gonna be late, I really apologize. I'm gonna make it up to you this way, gonna have it for sure at this time with this as well. My apologies, right? I've had it the other way where I work with people and I'm just like, what are you even talking to me about? I don't care about any of this. All I
Yeah.
care is that this didn't get done. You said you were going to do it. You said I was going to be here at this time. And the day of, you're telling me that it's not going to be done? And I had to call you?
Yeah.
I will lose my mind. But if you know what's going to happen or you think it's going to happen, you come tell me. Email, text, phone call. I'm available. You tell me that it's not going to happen 2 days before, not the day of. And if I have to call you to get that information, I'm an angry person. I'd be angry there. I'd be upset. That's not how you handle it. That's not professional.
Right.
So get your shit done. No one cares.
Keep your commitments.
Keep your commitments. Get it done. Get it done.
Yeah.
Don't tell me about fights like that. I don't care.
Yeah. So we just started the new year.
Mm.
I was wondering if you had any goals for next year or this year now.
So I have 3 companies that I'm working with that are startups. And they're all in kind of different phases of startups and in different industries. But I feel like they're all kind of set up right now to be ready to run a little bit or to try to be successful. They're all kind of set up in different ways that they can all be successful. So I'm excited for those 3 businesses. Having this conversation with you is good. I like having this on New Year's Day and thinking about that because taking the time to think about that isn't something that I would do naturally, right? It's just, this is in front of me, I'm gonna get this done. Mm-hmm. It's like the people who lie to themselves about what they do in their business. They're just heads down working. They're not seeing the world through the consumer's eyes. So, I'd like Rassler to become something this year, whatever that is. And I've got great clients that I work with all year, and I'm excited to keep working with them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep on keeping on.
That's right.
And then one last question I wanted to ask you is, how do you want to be remembered?
I don't care. I don't need to be remembered. I don't think it matters.
It's not important to you?
No. It's not important. I don't think anyone matters, right? None of us matter. No one matters. So, look, I'm gonna live how I live while I'm alive, and I respect people. Love my family, love my friends.
Mm-hmm.
That's as good as you can do. I don't need to have a legacy. I don't need to have a design legacy.
Yeah.
Don't care.
So what's most important to you then? What do you say?
I really, from a perception point of view, I want people to see me as reliable, at a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Fun to work with and be around. Someone who's like, hey, yeah, you can come. Hey, come over or whatever. That's really it. I think I like to be liked, probably.
Yeah.
Maybe too much. I should probably be, just maybe a dial I could turn down a little bit. I think I want to be liked. So if I'm liked, I'm fine. If not, I'll be like, hey, why? Am I good enough? Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got it.
Cool.
So if you want to say any more.
No.
And then if anyone that's watching, if they want to find you, is that
I mean,
something
I'm at hoofcase.com. That's my company. There's a story behind that that's not great. But hoofcase.com is where work from 10 years ago exists. You can email me, Brandon@hoofcase.com. You can go check out Rassler. If you send an email to Rassler, I'll get that as well.
I'll put the links. I'll put every link.
Okay. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you for coming. I
I
appreciate the
appreciate
time.
it. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you, anyone that's still watching. I appreciate you as well.
Yeah.
We'll see you in the next one.
Cheers. Happy New Year.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, buddy.